Welcome to our channel Folk Street Mystery, where every story begins in shadow and every clue goes under a single street lamp. Step inside. The next case is already waiting. Don't forget to share thoughts. Your feedback keeps the mystery alive. Now, let's begin.
Nero Wolfe and the Banned Manuscript Classic Noir Detective Mystery. Chapter 1, The Unwelcome Visitor. I was filing expense slips at my desk, an activity that makes me itch worse than cheap wool, when the doorbell rang. It was 10 minutes past 11, which meant three things were already fixed in stone. Fritz was preparing lunch, Wolfe would not move from his chair, and anyone calling unannounced was about to be disappointed. I glanced toward the stairs. No movement. Nero Wolfe was still upstairs in the plant rooms, communing with his orchids and the sort of silence he considered sacred. I sighed, stood up, and went to the door. The man on the stoop looked like he had lost an argument with sleep and wasn't done arguing yet. Early 40s, narrow shoulders, hat clutched like it might bolt. His eyes flicked past me into the hall as if expecting someone to leap out and throttle him. "Yes," I said. "I need to see Nero Wolfe," he said, voice thin as watered milk. "Join the club. Appointments only." He swallowed. "It's about a manuscript." I waited. People who lead with nouns usually have verbs they're afraid to say. "A banned manuscript," he added. That got him inside the doorway, which was more progress than most achieved. I closed the door behind him and took his hat. His hands were shaking. That was either fear or caffeine, and I doubted it was coffee. "You have 5 minutes," I told him. "Name?" "Daniel Kerr. I'm a literary agent." "Congratulations," I said. "Sit." He perched on the edge of the red leather chair like it was electrified. The house smelled of polish, old books, and the faint green sharpness drifting down from the orchids upstairs. It's a smell you don't forget, kind of like Wolfe himself. Heavy, cultivated, and not interested in apologizing. "I didn't come lightly," Kerr said. "I've been followed. I think my phone is tapped." "Everyone thinks that," I said. "Most of them are wrong." He leaned forward. "2 people are dead." That made it 3 things fixed in stone. Wolfe might not move, but he listened. "Accidents?" I asked. "Yes. No. I mean, officially. One fell down an elevator shaft. The other drowned in his bathtub." I gave him my best polite stare. "You'd be amazed how often gravity and plumbing get blamed for murder." "It's because of the manuscript," he said. "I know it is." I went to the stairs and raised my voice just enough. "Mr. Wolfe. We may have a live one." Silence. Then, from upstairs, the familiar basso rumble drifted down. "Mr. Goodwin, it is nearly noon." "I know," I said. "This one comes with corpses." A pause. Then, "Bring him in." That was Wolfe talk for "don't waste my time." I ushered Kerr into the office. Wolfe sat behind his desk like a monument to stubborn intelligence, 7'6", weighing in at a figure no scale dared confirm, hands folded on his stomach, eyes sharp as tacks behind heavy lids. He had changed into his indoor clothes, which meant he was prepared to be annoyed in comfort. Kerr froze. "This is Nero Wolfe," I said. "Try not to faint." Wolfe regarded him. "You have disturbed my routine. You will compensate me with relevance." Kerr nodded too fast. "The manuscript belonged to Elias Hartmann." That did it. Wolfe's eyebrows lifted a fraction. For him, that was a leap. "Hartmann," Wolfe said. "Presumed dead since 1948. A novelist of modest talent and excessive nerve." "Yes," Kerr said. "He disappeared after the book was suppressed." "Suppressed?" Wolfe repeated. "By whom?" "No one officially. That's the point." I leaned against the desk. "Let me guess. The book resurfaced." Kerr opened his briefcase and withdrew a thick folder wrapped in oilcloth. He didn't hand it over. He held it like a newborn. I found it in a private collection, he said. Annotated. Original pages. Names altered, but not well enough. Wolfe did not reach for it. And then people began dying. Yes. Who? Kerr hesitated. That hesitation told Wolfe more than a confession would have. Speak, Wolfe snapped. Margaret Lyle, Kerr said. Hartmann's editor. And Thomas Greer. A historian who helped authenticate the manuscript. Both inconvenient, Wolfe murmured. They were helping me, Kerr said. And now they're gone. I felt the hairs on my neck tighten. Why come here? Because, Kerr said, eyes darting to the windows, someone doesn't want this book read. Not published, read. Wolfe leaned back, fingers steepled. Mr. Kerr, manuscripts are burned every day. Authors die obscure and content. You exaggerate. No, Kerr said. This one implicates people who are still alive. Or their heirs. Or their reputations. That did it. Wolfe dislikes exaggeration, but he despises sloppy power more. Mr. Goodwin, he said, take the manuscript. Do not read it. Of course not, I said, already reading the margin notes in my head. Wolfe fixed Kerr with a stare. You will remain available. You will not speak to the police without my consent. You will double my fee. Kerr blinked. Double? Your fear is genuine, Wolfe said. That is expensive. Kerr nodded. He didn't argue. People who've watched death come quietly don't haggle. As Kerr stood to leave, the phone rang. I picked it up. Archie, Lieutenant Kramer's voice said, tired and gravelly. You busy? Define busy. Another one connected to that Hartmann business just turned up dead. I looked at Wolfe. He was watching my face. Accident? I asked. Kramer snorted. That's what the report will say. I hung up. Wolfe closed his eyes for a moment, as if cataloging irritations. Mr. Goodwin, he said, cancel my afternoon appointments. That bad? Yes. Someone is tampering with history. I find that offensive. Kerr backed toward the door. You are safe here, Wolfe told him. For now. I wasn't so sure. But as I watched the man leave and felt the weight of the manuscript under my arm, I knew one thing. This wasn't about a book. It was about who got buried with it, and who was doing the digging. Chapter 2, A Manuscript Too Dangerous to Read. If there's one thing Nero Wolfe hates more than being interrupted, it's being tempted. The manuscript lay on his desk like a slab of illicit cheesecake, thick, wrapped in oilcloth, and promising indigestion. Wolfe sat in his armchair, hands folded over his stomach, eyes fixed on it with the offended dignity of a man whose intelligence had been challenged by paper. Do not open it, he said. I wasn't going to, I said. I was just admiring the binding. Very understated. Screams political dynamite. He grunted. Fritz appeared with lunch at precisely 12:15, because time bends for no one except Nero Wolfe, and even then only grudgingly. The smell of veal and butter temporarily displaced the orchids drifting down from upstairs. Wolfe ate with concentration, as if solving crimes were a side hobby compared to maintaining proper digestion. I waited. Patience is my second worst virtue. When Wolfe finally leaned back and nodded for beer, I took it as permission to breathe again. You may speak now, he said. Thank you, your immobility, I said. Kramer called again. The third stiff is Leon Capel. Archivist. City Records. Wolfe's eyes sharpened. Ah. That's it? Ah. Capel was known for discretion, Wolfe said. And for his reluctance to misfile. Someone made him, I said. Or persuaded him. I tapped the manuscript. So we've got an author who vanished, an editor who drowned without getting wet, a historian who fell where elevators don't forgive, and an archivist who suddenly forgot how to breathe. All tied to a book no one wants published. Wolfe raised a finger. Correction. No one wants read. That was the first subtle clue, and it didn't wear a name tag. I picked up my coat. I'll go sniffing. Any preferences? Yes, Wolfe said. Begin with absence. That narrows it down to Manhattan, I said, and headed out. Midtown smelled like rain and exhaust, which is the city's way of reminding you it's alive and doesn't care. I took a taxi to the offices of Hartman and Lyle, defunct but not erased. The building still stood, its brass directory letters rubbed thin by fingers that once believed in permanence. The receptionist downstairs didn't. She told me the firm dissolved in '49, right after Hartman disappeared. Coincidence is a word cops use when they've run out of better ones. Upstairs, the old editorial office had been converted into a dance studio. Mirrors where manuscripts once lay. I watched a woman stretch where secrets had probably sweated. Absence, Wolfe had said. Next stop, a diner on 9th, the kind that remembered your coffee order even if it forgot your name. Thomas Greer had eaten here weekly, according to Kerr. I slid into a booth and ordered coffee. The waitress remembered Greer. Quiet. Tipped exact change. Always read while he ate. Anything unusual? I asked. She shrugged. He stopped coming. That's unusual. She leaned closer. Week before he died, a man came looking for him. Didn't eat. Just waited. What kind of man? She frowned. Important. That's diner code for dangerous. Back at the brownstone, Wolfe had not moved. He never does unless compelled by fire, flood, or gastronomy. You were correct, I said. Absence is loud. Explain. Everyone connected to the manuscript was careful, I said. Until they weren't. Someone started rushing them. Wolfe nodded. Fear accelerates error. He gestured at the manuscript. We will not read it. Of course not. But we will read around it. That's Wolfe logic for think like a mind that wants it dead. I spread my notes. Greer was visited. Capel was pressured. Lyle probably panicked. And Hartman? Wolfe asked. Still absent, I said. Which is starting to look intentional. Wolfe closed his eyes. Mr. Goodwin, a manuscript is only paper. What endures is reputation. Hartman threatened reputations that survived him. Politicians. Institutions, Wolfe corrected. More resilient. The phone rang. I answered. Yes, no, that's not possible. Thank you. I hung up. Well. Kerr's apartment was broken into. Nothing taken. Wolfe smiled faintly. That's how he shows irritation. Confirmation. Of what? That the manuscript is not the target. I stared at him. Then what is? Wolfe leaned forward, eyes alive now. Control. That night, I took a walk past the brownstone. Habit. The street was quiet, shadows doing what shadows do best. Across the way, a man sat in a car too long to be waiting for anyone honest. I waved. He didn't wave back. I went inside. Wolfe was drinking beer. You were followed, he said. Still am. Good, Wolfe said. It means we are interesting. I tossed my hat. You enjoy this. I enjoy precision, he said. And discourtesy offends me. Who's discourteous? Whoever believes they can erase truth by killing messengers. He tapped the manuscript. This document survived fire and time. People did not. That disparity fascinates me. I leaned back. So what's next? Wolfe looked at the clock. Tomorrow, you will visit a widow. A senator's widow. I blinked. How did? Margaret Lyle edited political fiction, Wolfe said. She did not drown alone. I grinned. You're good. I know, he said. Upstairs, the orchids exhaled their green, watchful scent. Somewhere in the city, someone was very unhappy that a dead man's book had found its way home. And we hadn't even read a word of it yet. Chapter 3, Death Between the Lines. If Wolfe's brownstone had a pulse, you could measure it by the doorbell. On a day when it rang twice before noon, you knew the city had started bleeding. It rang at 11:42. I opened the door and found Lieutenant Kramer standing there, hat brim low, jaw set like he'd been chewing nails for breakfast. "Archie," he said, and walked in without waiting for an invitation. He's one of the few who can get away with that, mostly because he's earned the privilege by being loud. "Wolfe upstairs?" he asked. "Orchids," I said. "He's intimate." Kramer snorted. "Tell him I'm here. And don't give me that routine line. I got routine too. Mine includes dead bodies." He shoved a folded sheet of paper at me. I unfolded it. Margaret Lyle was circled in pencil. Under it, apparent suicide. I looked up. "Another?" "Last night," Kramer said. "Her townhouse on East 72nd. Maid found her. Bottle of sleeping pills, water glass, neat as a church program. Coroner says suicide. You don't buy it." He glared. "If I bought everything I was told, I'd be running a bakery. The pills were her prescription, fine. But the water glass was on the wrong side of the bed. She was left-handed." That was the kind of detail that made Kramer useful, even when he was cranky enough to bite a lamppost. I called up the stairs. "Mr. Wolfe. Kramer brought you a left-handed corpse." Silence, then Wolfe's voice floating down like a judgment. "Bring him in. And refrain from vulgarity. See?" I told Kramer. "Warm welcome." We went into the office. Wolfe was already in his chair, looking as if he'd been there since the Spanish-American War. His eyes narrowed at Kramer. "You are early," Wolfe said. "People keep dying," Kramer growled. "You got that manuscript and you got my city stirred up like a sewer." Wolfe's lip curled. "It is not my city. And I have not stirred anything except my beer." Kramer tossed his hat onto my desk chair. "Margaret Lyle is dead." Wolfe's eyelids lowered slightly. "Yes. Mr. Goodwin anticipated that." I said, "I anticipated a lot of things. Mostly lunch." Kramer ignored me. "What do you know about her?" Wolfe didn't answer directly. He rarely does when the question comes from someone he considers imprecise. "She was an editor," Wolfe said, "with a talent for discretion and a taste for importance." "And now she's dead," Kramer said. "And somebody wants it to look like she did it herself." Wolfe's gaze shifted to me. "Mr. Goodwin, you will go to her residence." "Gladly," I said. Nothing like a morning at a corpse scene to keep the appetite trim. Kramer jabbed a finger. "And Wolfe stays put." Wolfe's expression didn't change. "Of course." Kramer glared as if he wanted to arrest the armchair. Then he left, muttering about fat geniuses and civic decay. The moment the front door shut, Wolfe turned to me. "Be attentive," he said. "Editors do not commit suicide when they have unfinished work." "Unless it's terrible writing," I said. Wolfe ignored that. "There will be a message." "A suicide note?" "No. A message to us. The killer is now confident." That should have been enough to give me chills, but I've had practice. I grabbed my coat and headed out. East 72nd Street looked like money trying to be modest. Brownstone steps scrubbed clean, doormen with poker faces, the kind of quiet that costs rent. Margaret Lyle's place had a black sedan in front and two uniforms keeping the curious at bay. Kramer flashed me in with a grunt. Inside, the air smelled of lilies and furniture polish. Death always makes a room too tidy. Margaret Lyle lay upstairs in a bedroom that looked staged for a magazine, except for the pale body and the small heap of orange pill bottle caps on the bedside table. The maid stood in the hallway, eyes red, hands twisting a dish towel like it had answers. I didn't go near the bed. I don't need to get close to know when someone's life has been turned off. Left-handed, I murmured, looking at the water glass on the right. Kramer nodded. Told you. I scanned the room. No note on the nightstand, no paper on the desk. But the desk drawer was slightly open, just a fraction too casual for a woman described as meticulous. I slid it open the rest of the way. Inside were letters, some typed, some handwritten. Most looked old. One envelope was newer, clean paper, no smudges. It had no stamp, no postmark. It had been hand-delivered. The name on the front, Margaret Lyle in block letters, like someone trying not to be recognized by their own handwriting. I held it up. This yours, Kramer? He frowned. Didn't see it. You didn't see because it wasn't meant for you, I said, and eased it open carefully. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Typed. No letterhead. You cannot publish what was never meant to survive. Leave it buried. This is your only warning. No signature. No flourish. Just that. Kramer's face went purple in a slow, familiar way. That manuscript again. Or the idea of it, I said. Notice it doesn't say Hartmann. Doesn't say book. It says survive. Kramer grabbed for the paper. I pulled it back. Easy, I said. This is my lunch ticket. He glared. You're getting cute, Archie. I'm getting paid, I said, and tucked the note into my pocket. Any signs of forced entry? None, he said. Maid swears she locked up. Says Mrs. Lyle was alone. People always swear, I said. That's why they invented perjury. I turned to the maid. Did Mrs. Lyle receive visitors yesterday? The maid swallowed. A gentleman came in the afternoon. What kind of gentleman? She hesitated, then said softly, the kind the doorman doesn't stop. That narrowed it to half of New York and all of Washington. Name? I asked. I didn't hear, she said. But he had a ring. A big one. Like a school ring. I filed that away. Men who wear big rings want you to notice them. Men who don't want you to notice them don't wear anything at all. Downstairs, I took a last look around the parlor. On a side table lay a thin book, poetry, dog-eared. Next to it, a matchbook from a private club. The Hollander embossed in gold. I slipped it into my pocket too. Kramer watched me. Stealing evidence, he barked. Borrowing, I said. I'll return it when I'm dead. Back at the brownstone, Wolfe was in his office, and the smell of orchids had intensified as if they too had heard the news. Fritz was somewhere in the kitchen doing something comforting with butter. Wolfe's eyes flicked to my face. She is dead. Not your usual greeting, I said. But yes. I handed him the typed note. He read it slowly, twice, then placed it on his desk without comment. Well? I demanded. Aren't you going to do that thing where you solve it just by breathing? Wolfe steepled his fingers. This is not an instruction. It is a claim of authority. You mean whoever wrote it thinks they're, what? God? Censors often do, Wolfe said. I tossed the matchbook onto his desk. Found that too. Private club. The Hollander. Wolfe's gaze sharpened again. Interesting. You know it? I have heard of it, he said. It is not a club one joins. It is a club one is allowed. Great, I said. So our suspect list includes everyone with permission. Wolfe ignored my tone. Mr. Goodwin, did you note anything inconsistent? Besides the left-handed water glass? Yes. The desk drawer, I said. Slightly open. Like someone went rummaging and tried to be polite about it. Wolfe nodded. Then the killer sought something. The manuscript? I guessed. No, Wolfe said sharply. The manuscript is here. Then what? Wolfe's eyes were hard now, annoyed in the way only he can manage, like the universe had failed to observe proper etiquette. Something written, he said. Not the book itself. The key to it. I stared at him. Margaret Lyle had a key. She edited, Wolfe said. Editors do not merely correct. They understand. If the manuscript implicates someone, she may have known precisely whom. He leaned back. Mr. Goodwin, we are no longer chasing a book. We are chasing the interpretation of it. The phone rang then, late afternoon, which is always suspicious. I answered. A woman's voice, low and controlled. Mr. Goodwin? Yes. Tell Nero Wolfe, she said, that if he involves my family in this, he will regret it. Click. I held the receiver a moment, then set it down. Wolfe watched me. Who was it? I don't know, I said. But she knows you. Wolfe's mouth tightened, his version of a smile when the game gets interesting. Good, he said. We are now close enough to frighten someone with breeding. I looked at the manuscript, still unopened, sitting there like a silent bomb. Outside, New York kept rolling, taxis hissing through wet streets, neon buzzing, people laughing too loud in diners because they didn't want to hear their own thoughts. Inside, Nero Wolfe sat immovable in his chair, and I knew we'd crossed a line. Margaret Lyle's death wasn't a warning anymore. It was a declaration of war, typed neatly, delivered quietly, and meant for us. Chapter 4, The Silent Censors. By the fourth day, even the orchid seemed tense. I don't mean that figuratively. When I came down the stairs that morning, the green scent drifting from the plant rooms had sharpened, like leaves holding their breath. Wolfe had been up there longer than usual, which meant he was either inspired or irritated. With Nero Wolfe, those conditions overlap like bad Venn diagrams. He descended at precisely 11, settled into his armchair with the gravity of a planet resuming orbit, and fixed me with a look. Mr. Goodwin, he said, someone has been editing history. That's a big manuscript, I said. Where do you want me to start reading? You will not read, he snapped. You will observe. I poured him beer. He accepted it like a king taking tribute. Margaret Lyle was warned, he continued. Greer was pressured. Capel was coerced. Yet none went to the authorities. Fear. I offered. Control, Wolfe said. Fear is crude. Control is elegant. I leaned on my desk. So who's holding the leash? An informal consortium, Wolfe said. Not an organization, those leave footprints. This is a habit. A tradition. I grimaced. You're talking about an old boys' club. Precisely, Wolfe said. One that corrects deviations quietly. I thought of the typed note. The Hollander matchbook. The woman on the phone who sounded like she had never been told no. Okay, I said. Where do I poke the hornet's nest? Wolfe's eyes glittered. The archives. Which ones? I asked. There are enough to bury the city twice. Begin with public records, Wolfe said. Then notice what is missing. City Hall smells like damp paper and resignation. I signed in, flashed a smile that suggested I belonged, and found myself seated across from a junior clerk whose tie was already fighting for parole. I'm looking for Elias Hartmann, I said. He typed. He frowned. He typed again. That's odd, he said. Odd is my specialty. There's a gap, he said. Between 46 and 49. His publishing contracts, correspondence, gone. Lost? I asked. Misfiled, he said automatically. Then he looked up. That's not right. No, I agreed. That's tidy. I wandered deeper, into older stacks where dust had tenure. There, I found a ledger referencing a transfer, documents moved to a private holding facility under temporary authorization. The signature block was stamped, not signed. Authorization doesn't usually evaporate. It gets renewed, denied, or abused. I copied the reference number and left before anyone decided I didn't belong after all. Outside, the rain had started, slicking the pavement and making the taxis hiss like irritated cats. I ducked into a diner and ordered coffee thick enough to qualify as asphalt. A man slid into the opposite booth without asking. He was neat. Too neat. Gray suit, no wrinkles, no visible enthusiasm for life. "You should stop," he said. I sipped my coffee. "Is that advice or an order?" "A courtesy," he said. "You're asking questions that were settled decades ago." "History doesn't settle," I said. "It just naps." He smiled thinly. "Some things are better left archived." "Funny," I said. "That's exactly where I found them missing." His eyes flickered. Just a twitch. But it was there. "You work for someone?" I asked. He stood. "For continuity." He left exact change on the table and walked out. I finished my coffee. It tasted like warning. Back home, Wolfe listened while eating lunch, corned beef, cabbage, and an expression that suggested the cow had been insufficiently consulted. "They removed Hartmann," I said. "Not just the book. The man. Contracts, letters, the paper trail. All gone." Wolfe dabbed his mouth. "Erasure is an assertion of power." "Yeah," I said. "And someone just asserted it at me over coffee." "Did he threaten you?" "No," I said. "Which was worse?" Wolfe leaned back. "They believe you will be reasonable." "I hate disappointing people." The phone rang. I answered. "Goodwin," said Kramer. "You stirring things?" "Just sugar," I said. "Why?" "We found Kappel's office was accessed after his death," Kramer said. "Files moved. No theft. Just rearranged." "Alphabetical?" I asked. "No," Kramer said. "Selective." I relayed it to Wolfe after hanging up. "Confirmation," Wolfe said. "They are tidying." "Why now?" I asked. "They've had decades." "Because the manuscript has reappeared," Wolfe said. "It threatens to restore context." I frowned. "Context kills people." "Context assigns responsibility," Wolfe said. "Guilt survives longer than facts." He rose then, actually rose, which made me straighten instinctively. Wolfe crossing the room is like a glacier deciding to stroll. He went to the desk and opened a drawer. Inside were folders, his own private archive. He withdrew one and handed it to me. "Read," he said. I did. It was a list of names. Politicians. Industrialists. A senator's widow among them. "You've been holding out," I said. "I have been waiting," Wolfe replied. "All these individuals were present at a private conference in 1947. "Where?" "The Hollander," Wolfe said. "That club again. Like a bad penny." "What happened there?" I asked. Wolfe's eyes were distant now. "An agreement. An act. A betrayal. And Hartmann wrote about it," I said. Thinly, Wolfe said. "Enough to be recognized by those involved." I leaned back. "So they didn't ban the book. They buried it." "And the author," Wolfe added. A knock at the door cut through the room. Fritz answered. A moment later, he returned with an envelope. "No stamp," Fritz said. "Hand-delivered." Wolfe took it. Inside was a single card. "You are pursuing a matter already resolved. This is your final notice." Wolfe read it once, then tore it neatly in half. "Discourteous," he said. "You okay?" I asked. "I am offended," Wolfe said. "That suffices." "By what?" "By anonymity," he said. Those who issue ultimatums should sign them. He settled back into his chair. Mr. Goodwin, summon our suspects. All of them? I asked. Not yet, Wolfe said. First, we observe their anxiety. That night, I took another walk. Same car. Different street. This time, when I crossed, it followed. I ducked into a shadowed doorway and waited. The car rolled past, slowed, then continued. No confrontation. No warning. Just watching. Back inside, Wolfe was sipping beer, calm as a monastery. They're close, I said. Yes, Wolfe agreed. They are accustomed to compliance. I looked at the unopened manuscript on his desk. When do we read it? When it is no longer dangerous, Wolfe said. That's backwards. No, Wolfe said. That is strategy. Outside, the city hummed, unaware that parts of its memory had been quietly excised. Somewhere, people with clean hands and old secrets were adjusting their grip. And Nero Wolfe, immovable in his armchair, had decided he did not like being edited. That, in New York, was usually fatal, to someone else. Chapter 5, Orchids and Obfuscation. If Nero Wolfe ever published a memoir, it would be titled Why Everyone Else Should Come to Me. The man had summoned half of Manhattan's upper crust to his brownstone and hadn't moved 6 inches to do it. By 11 o'clock, the house smelled like polished wood, orchids in high bloom, and trouble that had been ironed and pressed. Wolfe was in his armchair, monumental as ever, a glass of beer at his elbow, eyes half-lidded but alert. Fritz hovered like a benevolent ghost, prepared to serve coffee or eject sinners as needed. My job was crowd control. First to arrive was Mrs. Eleanor Brandt, the senator's widow, tall, elegant, and wrapped in grief the way some women wear fur. Her handshake was cool and precise. I don't understand why I'm here, she said. You will, I told her, and guided her into the office. Next came Victor Hale, publishing magnate, smile polished, eyes calculating. He glanced at Wolfe, then at the orchids, as if trying to decide which was more dangerous. Mr. Wolfe, Hale said smoothly, this seems unnecessary. Wolfe didn't look at him. Sit. Hale did. Then Charles Fenwick, former intelligence officer, retired, he claimed. He carried himself like a man who never stopped reporting. His gaze catalogued exits automatically. Last was Daniel Kerr, pale and sweating, clutching his briefcase like a flotation device. He looked relieved and terrified in equal measure to see the others. When the door closed, the room felt smaller. Wolfe opened his eyes fully. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, you are here because you share a common discomfort. Silence. You could hear the orchids breathing. 3 people are dead, Wolfe continued. Each had a connection to a manuscript authored by Elias Hartmann. Each death has been ruled accidental or self-inflicted. I find that improbable. Mrs. Brandt stiffened. This is outrageous. Wolfe inclined his head. Outrage is an emotional response. I prefer logic. Victor Hale smiled thinly. Are you accusing us? No, Wolfe said. I am accusing one of you. The rest are accessories of fear. That got their attention. I leaned against the wall, arms crossed, enjoying the show. Wolfe never rushed. He let silence do the heavy lifting. Mr. Hale, Wolfe said, you opposed Hartmann's publication in 1947. Hale shrugged. I opposed many things. He was irresponsible. Yet you acquired his publishing house the year after his disappearance, Wolfe said. A business decision. Indeed, Wolfe said. Mrs. Brandt, your late husband attended a private conference at the Hollander the same year. Her eyes flashed. That was decades ago. History is patient, Wolfe said. Fenwick shifted. This is all circumstantial. Wolfe's gaze snapped to him. Circumstance is the scaffolding of truth. I liked that line. I made a note to steal it later. Wolfe continued. Margaret Lyle edited Hartmann's manuscript. Thomas Greer authenticated it. Leon Capel ensured its absence from public record. Each died when the manuscript resurfaced. Kerr swallowed hard. Mr. Kerr, Wolfe said gently, you were not the target. Kerr nodded shakily. I know. Wolfe folded his hands. Someone here believes that controlling the past preserves the present. Fenwick laughed softly. You sound like a philosopher. I am a pragmatist, Wolfe replied. Philosophers ask why. I ask who benefits. I watched their faces. Mrs. Brandt was rigid, controlled. Hale was calculating. Fenwick was amused, too amused. Kerr was barely holding together. Wolfe dismissed them one by one, politely, firmly, leaving them unsettled but unexposed. When the door closed behind the last of them, the house exhaled. Well? I said. Anyone confess out of boredom? No, Wolfe said. But they revealed much. Such as? Fear patterns, Wolfe said. Mrs. Brandt fears exposure. Hale fears loss. Fenwick fears nothing. That's not comforting. It is informative, Wolfe said. He reached for his beer. Mr. Goodwin, tonight you will visit a vault. I blinked. A vault. Yes, Wolfe said. Private. Unofficial. Where the original manuscript pages were once stored. And how do I get in? Wolfe's mouth twitched. Mr. Hale is careless when confident. The vault was beneath a midtown office building that pretended to sell insurance. The guard pretended not to see me slip past while pretending to read a newspaper. Confidence is a universal key. Inside, the air was cold and smelled of metal and old secrets. I found the box Wolfe had predicted, empty now, but marked with Hartmann's name in faded ink. As I turned to leave, footsteps echoed. Mr. Goodwin, Fenwick's voice said. I spun. He stood in the doorway, hands visible, smile gone. You shouldn't be here, he said. Funny, I said. I was thinking the same about you. He stepped closer. You don't understand what you're meddling with. I understand people killing to stay comfortable, I said. That's not new. He sighed. It was necessary. I heard the click before I felt the shove. The world tilted, metal rushing up. And then I was rolling, hitting the floor hard, breath knocked out. A shot rang out, wild, ricocheting off steel. Fenwick swore and ran. I lay there a moment, then laughed weakly. Ow. Back at the brownstone, Wolfe listened without interruption as Fritz dabbed my forehead like a worried uncle. They tried to kill you, Wolfe said calmly. Attempted, I corrected. Very rude. Wolfe's eyes were cold now. Fenwick has abandoned subtlety. And confirmed your theory, I said. He was guarding something. Not the manuscript, Wolfe said. The narrative. I leaned back, sore but alive. So now what? Wolfe rose, again, a rare event, and stood by his desk, looming. Now, he said, I will read the manuscript. I stared. You said. I said when it is no longer dangerous, Wolfe said. They have made it dangerous for the wrong reasons. He picked up the oilcloth-wrapped bundle. Mr. Goodwin, he said, eyes gleaming, the time has come to see what frightened them. Outside, the city hummed on, unaware that a dead man's words were about to breathe again. And someone, somewhere, was realizing they had pushed Nero Wolfe too far. Chapter 6, The Manuscript Speaks. Nero Wolfe did not read the manuscript the way other men read books. He did not sprawl, skim, or snack. He sat in his armchair as if presiding over a tribunal, the oilcloth-wrapped bundle opened with ceremonial care, pages lifted one at a time, eyes moving with deliberate economy. Fritz had cleared the office of all distractions. No coffee, no interruptions, no noise except the faint, chlorophyll-rich breath of orchids drifting down from above. I waited. This was not easy. Watching Wolfe think is like watching a glacier negotiate real estate, slow, unstoppable, and guaranteed to rearrange the landscape eventually. An hour passed. Then another. I read the newspaper twice, folded it into shapes, unfolded it again. Wolfe did not move except to turn a page. Finally, he closed the manuscript. That sound, the soft finality of paper meeting paper, felt louder than gunfire. "Well?" I said. "Am I allowed to know what all the murder was about?" Wolfe did not answer immediately. He leaned back, closed his eyes, and breathed. When he opened them, his expression was not triumphant or shocked. It was offended. "This," he said, tapping the manuscript, "is not an incendiary document." I blinked. "People have been dying over it." "Yes," Wolfe said. "Which makes that fact intolerable." I stood. "You're saying it's not dangerous?" "Not in the vulgar sense," Wolfe replied. "There are no direct accusations. No names explicitly stated. No treason, no scandal." "Then why?" "Because it is accurate," Wolfe said sharply. That shut me up. He continued, "Hartmann wrote a roman à clef. Fiction, yes, but with such precision that those involved would recognize themselves instantly. It describes a post-war negotiation. A concession. A betrayal framed as necessity." I leaned against the desk. "What kind of betrayal?" Wolfe's mouth tightened. "One that shaped the political landscape of the following decades." "And the people involved are still alive," I said. "Or their reputations are." "Precisely," Wolfe said. "The manuscript does not threaten to expose a crime. It threatens to clarify responsibility." That was worse. The phone rang. I answered. "Archie," Kramer said. "Fenwick vanished." "Vanished how?" "Apartment empty. No luggage. No note. Neighbors say he left late last night." I glanced at Wolfe. He had already guessed. "He ran," I said. "Or was helped," Kramer growled. "You holding out on me?" "Always," I said pleasantly. "Keeps life interesting." I hung up. Wolfe was already speaking. "Fenwick's disappearance is not flight. It is repositioning." "You mean he's hiding?" "No," Wolfe said. "He is waiting." "For what?" "For us," Wolfe said calmly. That evening, I went out. Wolfe stayed put, because of course he did. My ribs still ached from the vault incident, which made taxis my preferred mode of transportation. I rode through streets slick with reflected neon, past diners humming with late-shift chatter, past couples arguing quietly because shouting costs energy. I ended up at the Hollander. You don't walk into the Hollander unless you're expected, but you can walk near it. Across the street, I leaned against a lamppost and watched people arrive. Men in dark coats. Women with perfect posture. All of them carrying the weight of rooms they had been in long ago. A familiar face emerged. Mrs. Eleanor Brandt. She paused on the steps, gloved hand resting on the brass rail, and for just a second her composure slipped. She looked tired. I followed her inside. The Hollander smelled of leather, brandy, and decisions that never made it into minutes. Mrs. Brandt sat alone at a corner table. I slid into the chair opposite her. "You shouldn't be here," she said softly. "I hear that a lot," I said. "It's never stopped me." She studied me. "You work for Nero Wolfe?" "Yes." "Then he has read it." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Her eyes closed briefly. "We were young," she said. "We thought we were preventing chaos. By creating it quietly," I said. She opened her eyes, sharp now. "Hartmann was reckless. He was specific," I said. She laughed without humor. "That's worse." I leaned forward. "Margaret Lyle didn't kill herself." Mrs. Brandt's fingers tightened around her glass. "I know. And you didn't stop it," I said. No, she said. I was afraid. Of what? Of being remembered correctly. That line stuck with me. Outside, I felt eyes on me. I turned just in time to see a man step into a cab. Fenwick. He looked at me through the window. No expression. Just acknowledgement. Then the cab pulled away. Back home, Wolfe was waiting. The manuscript lay closed again, like it had said its piece. She knows, Wolfe said, without preamble. She knows a lot, I said. And she's scared of memory. Wolfe nodded. As they all are. Saturday, Fenwick's gone to ground. No, Wolfe said. He has gone to relevance. I frowned. Meaning? He believes the truth will surface regardless, Wolfe said. He intends to shape its reception. The phone rang again. Late-night calls are never good news. Mr. Wolfe, a male voice said, controlled, unfamiliar. You have something that belongs to us. Wolfe took the receiver from my hand. You are mistaken, he said. The past belongs to no one. A pause. Release it, the voice said. And no one else gets hurt. Wolfe smiled faintly. You have already failed at restraint. The line went dead. I stared at him. You enjoy this. I enjoy inevitability, Wolfe said. He stood, slowly, deliberately, and placed the manuscript in his desk drawer. Mr. Goodwin, he said, the killer is not protecting a secret. Then what? A version, Wolfe said. One in which guilt is diluted, blame is dispersed, and responsibility becomes theoretical. And the murders? I asked. Editorial, Wolfe said. They were correcting the margins. I exhaled. So what's next? Wolfe settled back into his chair, immovable as ever. Tomorrow, he said, we assemble everyone. All of them? I asked. Yes, Wolfe said. The frightened. The powerful. The evasive. And Fenwick? Wolfe's eyes gleamed. He will attend. Voluntarily or otherwise. Outside, the city kept its secrets the way it always does, by layering them under noise. But inside the brownstone, beneath the orchids and the routines and the immovable chair, a dead man's words had finally been heard. And someone was about to learn that controlling history is far more dangerous than writing it. Chapter 7, A Net Tightened Indoors. If you want to see fear in its evening clothes, invite it to Nero Wolfe's office and ask it to sit down. By 6 o'clock, the brownstone had that expectant hush that comes right before a thunderclap. Fritz had prepared dinner early, duck, properly sauced, because Wolfe refuses to conduct serious business on an empty stomach. The orchids upstairs were glowing with smug health, as if they knew they were about to witness justice without having to testify. Wolfe sat in his armchair, monumental and serene, beer at his elbow, hands folded over his midsection like the Buddha of logic. I stood near the desk, playing usher, bouncer, and nervous system. They arrived one by one. Victor Hale first, publisher's smile polished, eyes flicking to the corners like he was checking for traps. Then Mrs. Eleanor Brandt, composed, dignified, grief-worn like tailored black silk. Daniel Kerr followed, pale but determined, clutching his briefcase with less desperation than before. Last, inevitably, Charles Fenwick. He didn't look like a man who had run. He looked like a man who had decided. Mr. Fenwick, I said lightly, nice of you to reappear. We were starting to miss your attempts on my life. He gave me a thin smile. You exaggerate. Only when it helps. When they were seated, Wolfe opened his eyes fully. You are all present, he said. Good. We may proceed. No one spoke. Silence in that room had weight. 3 people are dead, Wolfe continued. Margaret Lyle. Thomas Greer. Leon Capel. Each death has been conveniently misclassified. Each individual had a role in preserving, interpreting, or concealing a manuscript written by Elias Hartmann. Hale shifted. You still haven't explained why this concerns us. Wolfe inclined his head. I will. I crossed my arms. This was the good part. The manuscript, Wolfe said, does not accuse. It contextualizes. It describes a post-war decision made at the Hollander, one that sacrificed transparency for stability. A choice justified at the time and sanctified by repetition. Mrs. Brandt's jaw tightened. It is not illegal, Hale said quickly. Legality is irrelevant, Wolfe replied. The danger lies in clarity. Fenwick leaned forward. You're making philosophy out of paranoia. No, Wolfe said. I am making motive out of behavior. He turned his gaze to Hale. You acquired Hartmann's publishing house after his disappearance. A coincidence. You ensured the manuscript was never printed. A business judgment. You benefited from silence, Wolfe said. But you did not enforce it. Hale opened his mouth, then closed it. Wolfe turned to Mrs. Brandt. Your husband attended the conference. His signature appears in Hartmann's notes, thinly disguised, but unmistakable. You feared that recognition. Her voice was steady. Fear is not murder. Correct, Wolfe said. Which is why you are not the killer. She exhaled, just slightly. Wolfe's gaze moved to Kerr. You sought publication. Kerr nodded. Yes. And you brought the manuscript here, Wolfe said. If you were the murderer, you would have destroyed it quietly. Kerr swallowed. I just wanted the truth known. An understandable impulse, Wolfe said. That left one. Fenwick smiled faintly. You're enjoying this. I am, Wolfe agreed. You see, Mr. Fenwick, you are the only one who feared interpretation. Fenwick's eyes sharpened. I protected national stability. You protected narrative dominance, Wolfe said. You ensured that Hartmann's account remained speculative. I did what was necessary, Fenwick said. People like Hartmann didn't understand the consequences. And so you ensured he disappeared, Wolfe said mildly. A stir rippled through the room. That's absurd, Hale snapped. Wolfe raised a hand. Mr. Fenwick did not kill Hartmann. That would have been crude. Fenwick relaxed slightly. He ensured Hartmann was removed, Wolfe continued. Exile, anonymity, assistance. A man of intelligence service would know how. Fenwick's smile returned. And the others? You did not kill them directly, Wolfe said. You applied pressure. You reminded them of stakes. You relied on fear and coincidence. Suicide and accidents, Fenwick said. Editorial choices, Wolfe replied. I shifted my weight. You also tried to edit me, I said. That vault shove. Sloppy. Fenwick's gaze flicked to me, then back to Wolfe. You can't prove any of this. Wolfe nodded. In a court of law. Perhaps not. Fenwick smiled wider. Then this is just theater. Wolfe leaned forward. The room seemed to tilt toward him. You misunderstand, he said. This is positioning. He gestured to the desk. The manuscript will be released, not publicly, but selectively. To historians. To journalists. To those capable of inference. Fenwick's smile faltered. You have already lost control, Wolfe said. You accelerated exposure by committing murder. I prevented chaos, Fenwick snapped. No, Wolfe said softly. You ensured culpability. I watched it land. Not like a punch, more like gravity asserting itself. The phone rang. I answered. Yeah. Kramer's voice came through, loud and satisfied. Got him, Archie. Your friend Fenwick's been busy. We found his name on a pressure list tied to all 3 deaths. Plus some unfiled correspondence he missed. I looked at Fenwick. Bad filing habit. Kramer continued, we're downstairs. Wolfe nodded once. Excellent timing. Fenwick stood slowly. You think this ends anything? Wolfe regarded him calmly. It ends you. Kramer and two uniforms entered. Fenwick didn't resist. As they took him away, he glanced back at Wolfe. You're condemning history to instability, he said. Wolfe's voice was steady. History is unstable by nature. You merely feared being footnoted. When they were gone, the room sagged. Kerr let out a breath. Hale looked ill. Mrs. Brandt stared at the floor. Wolfe dismissed them politely, firmly. When the door closed behind the last of them, only the two of us remained. Well, I said, that was tidy. Necessary, Wolfe said. I looked at the desk drawer. So what happens to the manuscript? Wolfe didn't answer immediately. He reached for his beer. That, he said, is a matter of restraint. I nodded. Outside, the city hummed, indifferent as ever. But inside the brownstone, the net had tightened, and caught what it was meant to. Only one question remained. What price truth demands, and who gets to pay it? Chapter 8, The Price of Truth. The morning after Charles Fenwick was escorted out of our lives by Lieutenant Kramer and the city of New York, the brownstone felt unusually quiet. Not peaceful, Wolfe doesn't do peaceful, but settled, like a chessboard after checkmate when everyone is still pretending the game might continue. I came down the stairs at 10, coffee in hand, and found Wolfe already in his armchair, a rarity. The orchids had been tended early, their green scent was thicker than usual, confident and smug. Fritz moved silently through the room, restoring order with the precision of a man who believes chaos is a personal insult. Wolfe regarded me over his beer. You slept poorly, he observed. Someone tried to murder me twice this week, I said. It interferes with dreams. Your pulse is elevated, Wolfe said. Yet you are content. Case closed does that, I said. Wolfe grunted. Cases are never closed. They merely become less urgent. I sat at my desk and looked at the drawer that held the manuscript. It hadn't moved since Wolfe put it there the night before Fenwick fell out of favor with the universe. So, I said, what happens to the book? Wolfe did not answer immediately. He took a sip of beer, considered it, then nodded faintly as if agreeing with himself. It will not be published, he said. I waited. He knew better than to stop there. It will also not be destroyed, he continued. Nor hidden again. That's a neat trick, I said. Where does that leave it? In abeyance, Wolfe said. Placed where it may be accessed by those who seek understanding rather than spectacle. Restricted archive, I said. Precisely, Wolfe said. Anonymously donated. I frowned. After all that? People died. Yes, Wolfe said. Which is why restraint is now essential. I leaned back. You're saying the truth stays locked up. No, Wolfe corrected. I am saying it is contextualized. That sounds suspiciously like censorship, I said. Wolfe's eyes sharpened. Do not be imprecise. Censorship suppresses. This preserves. For who? For history, Wolfe said. Not headlines. The phone rang. I answered. Goodwin, Kramer said, sounding tired but satisfied. Fenwick's talking. Not much, but enough. The pressure campaigns, the unofficial influence, he's not denying it. And the murders? I asked. He never gave direct orders, Kramer said. But he leaned on people who knew how to apply force. It'll stick. Good, I said. Kramer hesitated. That manuscript of yours, it caused a lot of mess. Yes, I said. Funny how paper does that. When I hung up, Wolfe was watching me. You disapprove, he said. I don't know, I said. Part of me wanted to see it printed. Big splash. Names. Consequences. Wolfe nodded. You are young. Careful, I said. That's fighting talk. Wolfe allowed himself the ghost of a smile. Truth revealed without discipline becomes noise. Noise absolves rather than condemns. I thought about Margaret Lyle, about Greer and Capel, about the way fear had moved through their lives like a quiet editor, crossing things out. And Fenwick? I asked. He gets remembered as what? A man who mistook control for duty, Wolfe said. History will reduce him appropriately. Footnote. An unkind one, Wolfe said. Daniel Kerr arrived just after noon. He looked different, less hunted, more resolved. Wolfe told him our decision. Kerr listened, then nodded slowly. I wanted the book to matter, he said. It does, Wolfe replied. Just not loudly. Kerr hesitated. And Hartmann? Wolfe's gaze flicked to the window. He will remain what he has been for decades, a rumor with integrity. Kerr left without argument. People who survive proximity to Wolfe usually do. That afternoon, I watched as Wolfe sealed the manuscript into a plain archival box. No drama. No ceremony. Just care. Funny, I said. All that blood, and it ends in a storage room. Wolfe looked at me. Civilization depends on storage rooms. Evening came. Fritz served dinner. Wolfe ate with appetite restored, which is his version of a moral verdict. Later, as I stood by the window watching taxis glide through the street like luminous beetles, I said, you ever think about how close this came to going wrong? No, Wolfe said. I think about how close it came to being vulgar. I laughed. You're impossible. Yes, Wolfe agreed. The orchids upstairs breathed quietly, indifferent to human truth but pleased with their care. Outside, New York kept moving, stepping over yesterday's headlines, already forgetting tomorrow's. And somewhere in a controlled, dustless room, a manuscript waited, not to explode, not to accuse, but to endure. I turned off the light in the office. Mr. Wolfe, I said, next time a banned book walks through the door. There will always be a next time, Wolfe said. Let's hope it kills fewer people. Wolfe closed his eyes. Hope is inefficient. Vigilance is preferable. I headed upstairs, sore, tired, and oddly satisfied. The truth hadn't been freed. But it hadn't been buried again either. And in Nero Wolfe's world, that counted as justice.
If you like our story, please like, share and subscribe.